Welcome back to the Empathy Here, Not There podcast, where we dive into the power of empathy. I am Curtis Camponi, and today in episode 6, we are exploring something really important: empathy with ourselves. We're always so focused on showing empathy to others, our family, our friends, our colleagues, the people we serve and help. But how often do we really stop and show empathy to ourselves? So this episode is a little different than the others, but we need to talk about it. It's all about practicing self-compassion, self-reflection, and even cognitive empathy, understanding what truly motivates us, because all of that plays a crucial role in connecting with ourselves. And if our cup is empty, we just won't have enough to pour into other people. Look, we talked about this in the previous 5 episodes, that empathy means putting ourselves in someone else's shoes. But when we turn that inward, it means understanding our own struggles, strengths, and motivations. And the truth is, we often push ourselves harder than we push other people. We're quick to criticize and sometimes really slow to forgive ourselves. But here's why empathy with ourselves matters. It replenishes us, it grounds us, and without it, we risk burnout. We risk disconnection from the things that make us feel alive. We risk losing our motivation. Cognitive empathy, which is about understanding what motivates others, can also be used to reconnect with our own motivations. You got to ask yourself, what excites you? What lights your fire? Revisiting these questions when giving yourself empathy can help understand what fuels you and then tap into that energy during the most challenging moments, because we all know those challenging moments are there and they will come. Life is unpredictable. So with that being said, for this episode, let's also really emphasize some actionable strategies to practice empathy with yourself. Let's see if I can give you some tools for your tool belt to make sure that cup is being emptied out so other stuff can be poured in. So let's talk about some practical ways we can do this. The very first step is listening to your own needs, whether it's physically, emotionally, and obviously mentally. Listening to your own needs doesn't just mean tuning in or taking a break when you're physically tired. It's about paying attention to your emotional and mental states as well. If you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, anxious, disconnected, you have to take a pause. You have to ask yourself what could be driving these feelings, and not just the surface level of response. Deep down, what's motivating what you're going through? Try to have with yourself a daily check-in. When you're helping other people or helping someone work through a tough time, you probably check in with them, right? You give them a call, you give them a text, you say, hey, how are things going? We got to make sure to do that with ourselves as well. Spend a few moments each day asking yourself, how are you feeling? How is your day going? But write it down if that helps. Write yourself an email, write yourself a letter. If you're someone who likes to journal, sometimes putting those thoughts and those ideas on paper can go a long way. It can be done in the morning when you wake up, or it can be at night before you go to bed, whatever allows you to process some of those thoughts and those feelings you're having, especially when going through tough times. Another thing you can do is replace that inner critic you have with, what about an inner ally? What about someone that's not there to judge you or be harsh towards you, but be there to support you? Look, we all have that inner critic, that voice that tells us sometimes that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not working hard enough. But what if you sometimes replace that critic with a supportive voice? Next time you hear that inner critic start talking and jibber jabbing to you, pause and ask yourself, are the things I'm saying to myself similar to the things I would say to a close friend? Is the way I'm criticizing myself, is that in the same spirit that I would criticize a loved one? If the answer is no, then we got to flip the narrative a little bit. Instead, you got to ask yourself, hey, how can I support myself in this moment? Is there a way I can be the voice that I need in this in this moment to give myself some grace, which is just incredibly important, again, when going through those tough times. Another important part when you're practicing empathy with yourself is to figure out what motivates you. One of the most powerful ways to get yourself back on track is to reflect on what gets you excited, what gives you energy, what drives you forward. When you're feeling stuck or unmotivated, these are the things that can reignite your fire. What is your why? What is your purpose? Again, what gets you in the morning, be like, all right, I can't wait to start this day. I'm pumped about what's going to happen today. What is that for you? You have to ask yourself, what am I passionate about? What do I look forward to at my job? What parts of the job excite me? What do I look forward to doing in my personal life or those relationships that I have? What can I focus on that'll bring me joy? We get the opportunity to allocate attention to the things that we want to give it to. Now, there'll be some aspects of your life that you have to give energy to that you're like, I wish I didn't have to. But ultimately, you get to decide if you're going to tap into the things that bring you joy. Sometimes the simple act of revisiting questions like what makes me happy can remind you of what you need to do. A lot of times when you're practicing empathy with other people, it's understanding that most of the time they have the answer within them. They just need someone to help them talk their way towards it. And it's the same thing with you. You have what it takes. You just do. You have it inside you. So the idea is asking yourself those questions, having some self-reflection, giving yourself that empathy. As an example for like a personal story, a few weeks ago, I found myself feeling drained. There was a lot going on. Started to doubt whether I could handle everything on my plate. But I realized that one of my core motivations is to take on challenges with confidence. That's a very important value for me, that I feel there's always optimism there as it relates to finding a solution and moving forward and then working towards that with confidence. So when I felt myself wavering, I felt myself somewhat weak, I asked, what would a confident person do in this situation? And it might sound simple or silly, but that question really became a turning point because it helped me reflect on my mindset and reminded me of who I am at my core, who I want to be at my core, which is a confident person. So in this situation, a confident person would take a step back. They would assess the situation. They would tackle the challenge with clarity. So that's then what I did. I was practicing empathy with myself. I was tapping back into my motivations. I was supporting myself emotionally. And because of that, I was able to get back to the mindset that defined me. So here's my challenge for the listeners. I want you to practice empathy with yourself this week. The next time your inner critic shows up, pause and ask yourself, what do I need right now? Ask yourself, what would a supportive voice say to me? And then take it further by tapping into that cognitive empathy and ask yourself, what motivates me? And how can I get back on track on those things that get me excited, that really drive me, that give me energy? Self-empathy isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing practice. It's a daily practice, but it starts with taking small steps. It truly is one day at a time. So that is my challenge with you, especially if you're working in a field where you have to pour into others and empathy is your foundation with others. We have to take on the challenge of giving ourselves that same thing. So I hope you enjoyed episode 6. It was a short one, but an important one. Remember, empathy isn't just something we give to others. It's something we owe to ourselves. The more we practice it, the more we can fully show up in every area of our lives because we'll have the ability and the energy to do so. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share your story with me at curtis@speakformc.com. If you know someone who could benefit from this episode, share it with them too. I am on all podcast platforms and also on YouTube. So until next time, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, and keep practicing empathy with others and, importantly, with yourself as well. Thank you for joining me for episode 6 of Empathy Here, Not There. I'll see you at the next one. Peace, everybody.